Who can turn a man into a man? Who can turn a can into a cane? Remember that song? No, it wasn't me. It's Silent E. Ba-ba-ba. Du-du-du-du. What was that? Schoolhouse Rock? One of those. Or uh, the Electric Company. Oh, man. Bunch of information fed to us that either is or is not true. I'm thinking about starting a new channel called What Some White Guy Said. I'm actually really going to do that. That's going to be the name of the channel, What Some White Guy Said. There's a bunch of lies been told that, and still being told. A lot of people are finding out that, it's just not true. Christopher Columbus, George Washington. And next on, What Some White Guy Said. Very funny. Donald Gilbert, there is no state that is a black state. This is very true. There is no state or a group of people where it is considered or where it is a black state. There's only places where black people gravitate towards because of, for the most part, jobs. Uh, a lot of this started when black people were free, as in, or what they called them was free slaves, you know, because they were slaves and then boom, now they're free in the same lifetime. And so they started gravitating towards, the Midwest, towards the east. They were leaving the South. A lot of them landed in Detroit, and so no, there's no proverbial black state, but there is what black people consider the place to be because of the jobs were plentiful. You can start a family there. Um, Atlanta was another one, even though it is the South, but that didn't happen until hundreds of years later. But nonetheless, so Chicago and Detroit were the places to go, simply because of, well, the Motor City, Detroit. And they called it that because you could get a job working for, the motor companies, General Motors. And those jobs were plentiful up until recently. I know some people who actually work for General Motors. My dad worked for Goodyear in Akron. He worked there for 36 years. They pretty much told him he had to leave because he didn't want to. They made him retire. So uh, there's that. I just wanted to speak on that because when it comes to the cities that black people are in and or gravitate towards, there's usually, well, the number one reason is financial reasons, and it's the most important, but it's usually a financial reason, and that is still happening to us. We go where the money is, or let me put it like this: we go where it's easiest for us to get a job. Now, I did the same thing. I came out of Akron and I migrated to Columbus because they said it's easier to get a state job, and that's true. I ended up working for the Ohio House of Representatives. I started off as a temporary, but I did so well for the first two reps that I worked for. They was like, we're just gonna hire you on. So, I adapted and pretty much became a part of the system. And the only thing about it is term limits were implemented back in 1999. And when term limits were well, let me get this implemented. Well, let me get this straight. Basically, they had representatives there, like Representative James. He was there for like 30 years. Guy's like 70 years old. They were like, we can't keep having House representatives that are just, you can only do two terms. But these representatives were so good, Betty Boyd and, you know, Schuler and those guys and women were so good at their position and representing their district that the people kept voting for them. But they were just like, no, if the president can have two-term limits, then you can only have two-term limits. Well, I was a legislative aide once those term limits were implemented, and I worked for Representative Boyd. It was a great black woman, and she was awesome, and we wanted to keep her in office, but it just wasn't going to happen. She migrated to ODJFS, and I went there with her. Now I would have stayed with the House if if they would have rehired me, or another representative wanted me. So I actually went to another female black representative, and she pretty much blew me off like I was not important. So I said fine, and I ended up going to House or ODGFS, and basically that was only on a not a temporary basis, but I was it was another name for it. But you're not exactly all the way in the door, but you're still getting purrs and all that. But you can only be one for like 3 to 6 months, and then they're either gonna hire you or they're not. And they didn't. They end up getting rid of my pretty much the majority of my floor, including my boss. I end up seeing him later, and he was driving a cab. I was like, "You fired me." He's like, "I didn't fire you." He remembered me years later. He's like, "I know who you are." So they got rid of a whole bunch of people and kept a skeleton crew. So I just wanted to get that down, where black people migrate to and why. It's usually because there are jobs out there. Now, as far as uh, um, you know, General Mills or General Motors, and Honda is the big deal out here where I'm at, and I did work for Honda for years, but I worked there as a temp. You know, I worked there through Labor Ready, so I worked there as a temp. Just like my dad, I worked in a factory, car factory, and I did that for a while. And every now and then, I could still go back as a temp, you know, but it's not for me anymore because of my injuries. So I want to say that no, there is no black state, but there are places that we go where we know we can make a lot of money. I guess like anybody else, it's the reason why the Mexicans are flooding in through America, because for one, their country is going through a lot of civil war, even though it's drug related, still a civil war, and so they're coming over here, but they're coming over here and they're cleaning up. They're doing every odd job that there is, and they're winning all day. And now the majority of people who you see, like my neighbors, they're all Latino. And you know what? They're doing it. They're doing it like they're supposed to be doing it. They're out there every day making their money. So like Ohio is, I'm telling you, it's gonna be known as a Mexican state or a Latino state, because there are more of them than there are of, well, they're pretty much there are being less and less white people, and they're not reproducing as much. They're trying to pay white couples to actually have children. Uh, Black people aren't keeping up with the numbers as far as Mexicans is, because our country is, across the water. The Mexican country is across the bridge. It's across the street. So yeah, they're coming into this country, and I don't care how many walls you build, you're not going to stop that. But I just wanted to get into that conversation real quick. And you guys check out my book called The Sorrowed King. It's on Lulu.com. Thank you for listening to my music. Just stopping by the links I put in the description, just giving it a listen. I appreciate it because I get like a few pennies from stream revenue from you just streaming it or listening to it, especially if you listen to it on iTunes and things along that line, or Spotify. So I appreciate it. Every little bit helps. Nowadays I'm trying to get money all kind of ways. I'm on the grind again. But yeah, I wanted to get in that. You guys stay blessed. God loves you.